DK finally found the confidence to tell Uloma how he felt about her. But when she heard what DK had to say, she laughed and said, "You're like my little brother." The prince was shocked by her response because he was older than Uloma by 2 years. Over a century ago, on a Tuesday evening in the village of Obodo, the king sat with his chiefs, awaiting news from the midwives because his queen, Chinaza, was in labor. It was the very first pregnancy she had experienced in her 43 years of age. Since she married her husband, they had been waiting eagerly for a child, and occasionally she would suggest to the king, "My husband, please take a second wife. If I don't give you a child, the throne will be taken from you." But the king always refused her suggestions because he loved his wife too much to allow another woman into his home. Suddenly, a midwife walked into the throne room. "Igwe, long live the king. The queen has delivered a bouncing baby boy." The throne room was filled with excitement. The Igwe finally had an heir to his throne. But whilst they were celebrating, King Ugo noticed the extreme worry on the midwife's face. "Is my queen okay?" he asked in fear. And everyone suddenly became quiet. "The baby and the mother are doing great," the midwife answered. Then the king went on to ask why she looked so worried. "Igwe," the midwife said, with her voice trembling, "the queen gave birth to a dwarf." The king could feel the judgmental eyes of his chiefs looking at him, but that was not enough to bring him down. So he said to the midwife, "Please, take me to my wife and son." When the king arrived at the hut, he took the baby in his arms and began speaking words of blessings over him with a huge smile on his face. "My son," he said, "you are a blessed child. You will be the greatest king in your time. You will rule your people fairly, and everyone will call you great, and your name will be called Dike." As Queen Chinaza watched her husband in awe, she confirmed what she already knew about him. The king was an excellent man. Many years passed, and during those years, King Ugo and his wife backed up those prayers with actions. As Dike grew into a man, it was obvious that he was going to be very special. He was trained by his father to become a strong warrior. His arms, although short, were strong enough to go against his enemies in battle. He learned to keep his feet stable to withstand the force of his opponents, and his hands, they were trained to wield several weapons of war. Above all, the prince had a heart of gold. His people loved him so much that some secretly wished that his father would pass away so that Dike would rule as king. But of all the things Dike had achieved for himself, he had one desire which he had nurtured for most of his life. It was the desire to marry Uloma. Dike and Uloma were close from a young age because their mothers were best friends. And as they grew into young adults, Dike finally found the confidence to tell Uloma how he felt about her. But when she heard what Dike had to say, she laughed and said, "You're like my little brother." The prince was shocked by her response because he was older than Uloma by 2 years. He did not need anyone to tell him that she referred to him that way because of his height. When Uloma saw how hurt he was, she quickly realized she could lose the popularity that came with being a close friend to the prince. So she said, "Dike, I was just joking." But you have to prove to me that you love me, that you want to be my husband. Dike smiled. At least, that was a positive answer. He refused to speak on the topic anymore. Rather, he decided to try his best to please her, in hopes that one day she would see him past his physical condition and let him marry her. And Uloma was pleased, because she would gain more respect from the people of Obodo when they found out she was Dike's love interest. And she was right. The maidens wanted to be her, and the men in the village began bombarding her with marriage proposals. Everyone desired what the prince wanted. Severally, Dike's best friend, Uche, would try to make him choose another maiden from the village. "What is so special about Uloma?" Uche would ask. "She is a proud woman and is not befitting for a man like you." Uche and Uloma never got along because Uloma could not understand why Dike kept him as a friend. Uche's brother, Emeka, was a leper who lived separately from the villagers because of his skin condition. And at every opportunity, Uloma would tease Dike whenever Uche was present. "Are you sure Uche is not leprous too? Let them not infect you with that rubbish." But nobody could separate Uche and Dike. They were very loyal to each other. One day, as Uloma was walking to her house, she was stopped by Obi. Obi was the richest bachelor in the village. He quickly went straight to the point and said, "I like you and I want to marry you." Uloma was over the moon with excitement. She was finally satisfied. This was the type of man she would be proud to call her husband. She began avoiding Dike and spending her time with Obinna. After all, she did not need him anymore. Several weeks passed, and Dike finally accepted that Uloma would never be his wife. So, he decided to move on, and in a matter of time, he found a woman called Chioma who reciprocated his feelings. They fell deeply in love, and he often wondered why he wasted time chasing Uloma instead of trying with another person. Uloma, on the other hand, began having troubles in her relationship. Obi, who had initially approached her for marriage, now seemed to be uninterested. So many times, she would ask when he was coming to see her parents, and he would give her a date. The day would come, but Obi never showed up. Eventually, he had to call off the relationship. "I am not ready to get married," he said. "I thought I was, but I'm not ready." Uloma cried herself to sleep that night. She had sent all her suitors away because of Obi. As days passed, she made up her mind to accept Dike's proposal. "Perhaps I can just manage him," she thought to herself. "At least, I will be the queen of Obodo someday." When she went to the palace, she met Dike, who greeted her warmly. And because of his warm reception, she thought he had missed her so much. But Dike was just a man who never bore grudges. "Dike, I have thought of your proposal, and I am ready to be your queen," Uloma said to him. When Dike heard what she had to say, he was surprised he did not feel excited by the news, and that was because he was truly in love with Chioma. "Uloma, I have set a date to meet my future wife's parents." "Did you not hear it? It should be all over the village," Dike responded. Uloma was upset. She was even more upset when she knew who his wife would be, a girl who came from a very poor family. Well, she decided she was not going to let him go. She just had to be the queen of Obodo. So, she set out to do something very risky. Uloma's auntie was a herbalist, so she stole one of her potions, which could erase a person's memory. Her plan was to give it to Chioma. That way, she would forget all about Dike, and Dike would be forced to move on with her. So for several weeks, she worked her way into Chioma's heart, coming under the guise of a friendship. And Chioma, as pure-hearted as she was, accepted her. One day, she mixed the potion in some wine and took it to Chioma's house, and immediately she left to avoid suspicion. But Chioma was expecting Dike and Uche to visit that day to talk about the marriage preparation. However, Uche arrived first, and as he sat down, his eyes caught the wine god. "Our wife, Biko, give me some wine to drink," he requested. Chioma immediately poured some for him. But 5 minutes after drinking the wine, Uche started gasping for air. Chioma immediately ran to call for help, but unfortunately, Uche passed away before she came back. The potion was meant to cause memory loss, but Uche was allergic to one of the leaves used to prepare the potion. That leaf would tighten his airways, affecting his ability to breathe properly. The villagers gathered, and soon Dike arrived too. Chioma narrated the whole story to them, and they all realized it was the wine that caused Uche's death. So, they marched to Uloma's house. When they got there and presented the case, Uloma tried to deny the accusations, but the palm wine tapper she bought the wine from in the morning confirmed he sold it to her that day. When she realized she had been caught, she started begging Dike for mercy. "Dike, Biko, I am your childhood friend." But it was out of Dike's hands. He was not the king, and it was his best friend that was just killed. The villagers took her to the palace, and the king asked the guards to lock her up in the dungeon, while he pondered on the next step to take. 2 days passed, and the Igwe was finally ready to give his verdict. We all know that Uche was his parents' only hope of continuing their bloodline, because no woman agreed to be married to his brother, Emeka, due to his sickness. So, I have decided that Uloma will be Emeka's wife, and she will have to live outside the village with him, where they will try to bear children to continue his father's lineage. And of course, my guards will be present to ensure she fulfills her duties. Uloma fainted, but the villagers did not care. They carried her in her state and kept her close to her new home, leaving some guards with her. So, Uloma, who once had the opportunity to become the queen of Obodo or marry whoever she wanted, became the leper's wife to continue his family's bloodline. So, just as I did in a former video, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to tell me what you learned from this story, and I hope it blessed you. Also, the free ebook for this story is currently available, so if you want access to it, please click on the link in the description and you'll be able to access it. Thank you for watching this story today. If you liked it, please like and share with your loved ones. Till next time, bye.